Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. It's pep talk time with Travis. I know that the things that I talk about sometimes, and probably what I'm going to say today, is hard for some of you. Some of you, you've already gone through the grieving process. You've already dealt with the loss. And others, you're still hopeful that things will kind of pull through, that things will turn around, that somehow the next guy will get into office, or there'll just be something that happens that just changes things, that some miraculous thing will happen. And of course, I'm not excluding the possibility of something miraculous happening, but if you believe that we are in those end times, those days of Noah that's spoken of in the Bible, if you believe that we're getting into that time period, then you have to know, according to Scripture, that it doesn't really appear that there's going to be some turning around and being, all of a sudden good again, and this great revival, whether it be spiritual or moral or political revival. In fact, it's the opposite. It says that there's a great falling away. We have to start wrapping our heads around the fact that the United States and in the great part, the West, is collapsing. It's falling apart. And I talk about, you talk about, other people online talk about all these different things in the news. And I say that I talk about them because, well, it gives us a little bit more of a heads up of what's going on. But at times we need to stop and step back and look at the bigger picture of what's going on. Because when you see the bigger picture and you see everything that's happening, it's much easier to see that it's not just that the economy's not doing really good right now, or that, well, there's this big political battle between Biden and Trump, and Biden is using the power of government to, infiltrate and to affect, the election, and Trump is, unjustly being blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Or that the world food situation is bad, and that the climate is bad, and wars, they're bad. We talk about all these different things, but we need to step back and see really the whole picture at times, and realize that the whole picture is very strongly indicating that we are in the process, not really entering anymore, but we are in the process of watching what was once a great nation and a great civilization collapse. For those of you old enough to remember the Soviet Union, they collapsed in 1991, eventually became Russia. But you could start to see things in the mid to late 80s, indicators that the Soviet Union was collapsing, that it was on its way out. And it struggled for power and everything until it just couldn't do it any longer. That's kind of what we're seeing happen. The bad thing is, though, is that the United States holds a more prominent position than the Soviet Union did in the 80s. The whole world kind of really is resting on the United States, of our economy, our prominence globally, our military prominence, our production, everything. That's why you're starting to see all of these countries run to BRICS, run to China, run to Russia, run to other places, because they see it too. They know that if they keep themselves tethered to this ship, when it goes down, they're going to go down with it. And so that's why they're trying to break away, because when this falls, it's going to cause tidal waves across the world in the economy and other places. The United States is a bigger fish. We have, a lot more going on. And when it falls, it's going to create a much bigger catastrophe than even what was seen in Eastern Europe and throughout Russia when it was going through its tumultuous times of trying to figure out its new legs. It's going to be a lot worse. And we have to realize that. We have to realize that this is what it is. It's what's happening. And I know that many of you consider yourselves ardent patriots, as do I. But I'm not patriotic for this government. I'm not beholden to it. I took an oath to the Constitution, not to the U.S. government, per se. And many of you did the same thing. And just because you may have gone off and fought for this country, it doesn't mean that what you did was all in vain. and that you should be ashamed of it or that it was a waste of time. You did it with good intentions. You did it to possibly hold on to and uphold the ideas that this country was founded on. Unfortunately, it's gotten past that point now. It's no longer there. It's for those of you that's still trying to hold on and say, but it's America. You know, we you can't just turn your back on it. You can't just give up on her. I'm afraid for those people, it's going to start getting rough, because if you're not psychologically prepared, obviously you need to be physically prepared and spiritually prepared. But if you're not psychologically prepared for what we are about to see, it could be very shocking to you. It could cause you to just kind of lose yourself. And that's part of preparedness, is realizing that what we are embarking upon, it's catastrophic. It's going to be catastrophic in every possible way. I can't tell you how it's going to turn out. I can't tell you what's going to be the first thing to fall, the first blow. I suspect there's going to be multiple things happening, whether it be economic, whether it be wars, and so on and so forth. I can't tell you who's going to rise to the top of the ashes. Is it going to be China or Russia, or is it just going to be some big unified global union? I can tell you, though, that there's pretty strong indication that the United States, as we know it, is on its way out. Will there still be a United States afterwards? It's possible, maybe. I could see that being a possibility, but it won't be anything what it is today. And not just in strength and prominence, but it also won't be anything that it is today in freedom, because we're watching those freedoms rapidly being taken away. I saw that just the other day that that the ATF, for those of you gun-loving folks and friends of mine, the ATF is now proposing to pass a rule that would outlaw all private sales of firearms, all private sales, and also would outlaw the ability for you to manufacture your own firearm, as long as you're not selling it. As it is now, you know, it's not illegal to manufacture your own firearm and not have it any kind of registration or serial number, as long as it's never sold. And the word on the street is that the ATF is proposing, or at least considering, making that illegal. I know it's not constitutional. I get it. That doesn't mean that they're not going to use the power of their badge and their guns to come rain havoc on gun owners. That's just a drop in the bucket, folks. It's just a drop in the bucket of what we're seeing happen. The amount of liberties that's been absolutely destroyed by this government, not just this president, but the previous one and the one before that, is just, it's adding up to a point that I can't even keep up with it. The amount of wealth that's been consumed from the American people in the last few decades is absolutely astronomical. I saw a statistic, and I don't know if I can remember it exactly, but in the last 40 years, basically, since we went off the gold standard, the top 1% of the American population has increased their wealth by something like 20-some trillion dollars. The lower 50% of the American people has reduced their wealth by about $900 million. So we've seen this massive transfer of wealth. Or maybe it's 900 billion. I can't remember. If I can find it, I'll have it put up here. The point is that we are watching things collapse on a daily basis. Is it collapsed to the point that life is no longer functioning in America? No, of course not. Life is functioning. It's trying to adapt and overcome the craziness. But at some point, it will be too much. The momentum of the collapse, the momentum of all the problems is going to become so great that even just the normalcy of society and the ability for society to kind of adapt to it and kind of overcome it, it won't be able to anymore. And that's when problems are really going to start happening. We're going to see chaotic things in just about every area of life. And I would say that most of you that are watching are going to live through at least some of that. We have a rough road ahead. And I'm not on here trying to doom and gloom everyone. I'm not on here trying to scare everyone. I'm not on here trying to sell you some kind of whatever. I'm telling you that these things are happening around us right now. You cannot look at history and see that these things are just normal. They're not. The stuff that's happening is not normal. The amount of debt that we are going into on a daily basis, billions of dollars a day, we are now going into debt as a nation. The private sector has $1 trillion in credit cards. Almost 6 billion or 6 million credit cards were taken out just in the last quarter in the American population. Almost 6 million new credit cards just in the last quarter alone. We can't continue on this path. It's not sustainable, and it's not just that it's not sustainable for the foreseeable future. That's been that way for a while. For the last 2 or 3 decades, the path that we've been on has been unsustainable for the foreseeable future. We are no longer sustainable for the immediate future. It's very possible that we're only months and at the most maybe a year or two away from seeing some type of catastrophic, cataclysmic collapse within America, whether it's through the financial system, banks, food, infrastructure, immigration over abundance of illegals coming across, or some type of global war. We are on the verge of all of those things and more. And so many people, well, they've just become conditioned to accept that this is just normal and that we'll just figure out a workaround. You cannot allow yourself to be that kind of person. You have to stand up within yourself and within your family and say, we're not going to be duped by this. We're not going to be caught up in all this, and we're not going to be convinced that this is normal. We are going to take a different path for our family and for our community. We're going to get prepared. We're going to step outside of the system as much as we possibly can. Because when we do that, it creates at least a little bit better, a little bit safer ground for you to stand on. Because when everything starts going into that kind of spiral downfall, it's going to happen bad, and it could happen very quickly. In fact, I've seen many very knowledgeable people. In fact, I remember about a year ago, it was one of the executives from BlackRock, yes, you know BlackRock, had said that they predict that things will just continue to worsen, and then at some point in the future, it'll just start to snowball. Of course, they were speaking strictly of the economy, but I think that that would be true with just about any sector of our civilization. I think they're just going to continue to get bad until at some point, whatever happens, whether it's just the stress of the American people or something big, it's going to cause things to just kind of fall off the cliff. We have to be ready for that and stop just, trying to keep a normal life and just hope that if we keep our head in the sand long enough, if we keep distracted from it for long enough, that maybe it'll go away. Maybe it's not as bad. Maybe what all the naysayers in my life, the people commenting online, the people that I work with, my family members, my friends, that all say that I'm crazy. I'm seeing something that's not there. Maybe if I just keep quiet long enough, I'll realize that they're right. But you're not going to, because you know that they're not right. You know that they're the blinded ones, and you're the one that was gifted. That maybe you're those ones that's spoken of in the Scripture, that's talking about those that have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. That remnant. It could be that's what you are, and that you have the ability to see what's going on. Because anymore, only a very few people really have that ability to understand how bad things are. You need to take notice of it, and you need to prepare yourselves. And don't think that you're turning your back on your country, turning your back on your patriotism, or anything like that. In fact, I would argue that if you are an ardent patriot, then you would take these actions, because even our founders knew that their patriotism wasn't tied to the government that they created. The patriotism was tied to the ideals that they founded in this country. And that's where we need to be. You need to be getting your houses in order, taking it very serious. Things are moving pretty fast right now. You need to be preparing yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.